You see the title of the video. You know it's about JRPG devs. You know it's about to be a very spoilerific subject. So you want to be spoiled? I such a go away right now. Hell, I can't even give you the list right now, and that'd be a technical list of spoilers because now you're expecting it for certain games. Okay? You're cool with that? Alright? Here's a list of games, and now it gets to the video proper. Alright? Thank you for staying. Have a good time. Deaths in JRPG. Some considered legendary, but some are considered kind of things, and I just want to know, why is that the case? So I'm gonna go with some examples from Devil's JRPGs I can think of. A lot of JRPGs right now, because I'm thinking more of playable character devs in JRPGs rather than devs in RPGs, period. So it's gonna be a more narrowed idea video. Let's go with perimeter devs that people don't really think much, don't take seriously. For example, let's go with the fake out devs. So that's Final Fantasy IV. We have several characters such as Yong, Palamamporum, and Sid, who all the idea that they die, but they actually come back later through one reason or another. Except for Tellah. Tellah actually stays dead, but Tellah's death kind of gets overlooked because it's in a game filled with fake out devs, and people generally are kind of mixed on fake out, because if they like the character, then they'll be welcoming the fake out, but if they don't like the character, then they'll be like, or the character's in, and be like, really, we did a fake out? That's kind of like cheapens your narrative kind of thing. Except for Tellah, he actually died, but people generally don't even think about Tellah at all, especially I guess when you have Rydia, who comes back later and is like infinitely better than Tellah was. So kind of one entire weird aspect of Final Fantasy IV, where people generally look over Tellah's death because it's in a game filled with fake outs. Final Fantasy II has several party members who die, but once again, their deaths aren't really seen as much because not only are they short-lived, but they don't really add a lot to the party. So for some people, they think those characters are part of a category of these characters were created just to die and pretty much don't matter. Like, I think other example of characters just made to die, people say, is Persona 3 with Shinjiro, where despite Shinjiro being set up early in the game as Akihiko's friend and it cuts into Akihiko, people still pretty much see him as he doesn't matter or isn't anything that important because of the fact that he's only in the party for like a month. But he was set up earlier and everything in the game, but to some people, he's a character made to die. He has an entire moveset, a fully fleshed out moveset, and everything, even get him only like the level 80s, but it doesn't matter to people, he's just created to die. And for some people, that's all that matters, therefore they don't think much of Shinjiro at all. Now we get JRPGs that give you a replacement character when a certain party member dies. Let's go over the Legend of Dragoon. In the game, towards the end of Disc 1, Lavitz, who's been with you for a good chunk of the game, ends up getting killed. But he is replaced by Albert, which I've seen some people say completely invalidates Lavitz's death. I don't understand this when one, Lavitz's death still gets brought up throughout the game, and two, Albert does not play the same as Lavitz. He may have the same additions, but his additions are performed completely differently than Lavitz's.
Harpoon! Yeah! Harpoon! Ha! Da! 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 Ha! Moonstorm! Yeah! Da! Yeah! Da! Blossom Storm!
He even has slightly different qualities to his Dragoon spells, so I don't really get why this character death doesn't really count for people, because, oh, I'm gonna take this place, so what was really lost? My favorite character in the game was lost, you jerk. But that's one that just I don't get. Final Fantasy V. My favorite character in the Final Fantasy franchise, Caliph, ends up dying in this game, and yet, because his granddaughter Cryo takes his place, people say his death doesn't matter as a result, because, well, completely, gameplay-wise, it doesn't matter because he got a replacement, even though Caliph is built more towards physical, and Cryo is built more towards magic. But for people, as long as there is a gameplay thing to replace the character, they think the character's death is inconsequential and doesn't really matter or add much to the game, even if it's just more of a narrative thing. Because to them, as long as they're a replacement, that's all that matters, and they don't really care for the character's death. Which now leads us to the character death that I know you saw coming, everyone saw coming, and it leads to a sort of hypocrisy when it comes to the previous things I've mentioned. And that is, Aerith was a TH in Final Fantasy VII. This is one that people still get teary-eyed and cry to this day over, because this character left a major impact on them, so their death and removal really means a lot to them. Except, here's the thing, gameplay-wise, it's completely inconsequential, like Galef, because in Final Fantasy VII, since their main gameplay is a materia system, every character pretty much plays the same, but people will make excuses with saying, oh, but she's the best mage. In a game I can make anyone a mage, doesn't matter. Oh, but her first limit break is Healing Wind, which is a healing spell. Okay, I give Cloud the freaking cure materia with the cure with all, so I can do the same thing. But people will make any sort of claim to say why Aerith's death is completely different or special, even though she should be in the category of Galef of, well, gameplay-wise, doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things. And to be honest, I kind of feel like because of how early in the game it happens, you can kind of also place her in the built to die category too. But people won't do that because of how much of a legendary status her character and death is for people. So she gets all these exceptions to the rule, even though she should kind of be part of this whole entire aspect. Another example of a character that also manages to somehow be an exception to all this stuff is Akechi in Persona 5. Akechi is generally mixed very well throughout the game within cutscenes and narrative, but gameplay-wise, he only joins your party for 1 month inside his palace, then is back to being a non-party member, and he dies. If you're playing the Royal version, he's playable again during the 3rd semester, but that's about it. Like, he should be labeled a character that's more of a created to die, and is fairly consequential because technically with the way making personas work, anyone is consequential compared to the wild card as a result. But once again, people care more about Akechi's death. People talk more about Akechi's death. Some people think that mofo lived. I don't agree, but hey, people like him so much, they're willing to actually have that argument, and that is good for them. Once again, why does none of this apply to the characters like Galef, like Lavitz? They don't get that benefit at all because of different circumstances of their death. Like, why does Akechi and Aerith get this exception of, oh, but they have such a big impact for people, therefore their deaths are more important and more matter and actually handled better, even though Aerith gets replaced completely by anyone else in the party with materia, and Akechi, well, he's kind of been usurped by the player to begin with, but the fact that he basically is created to die in a sequence because you don't really use him much as a playable character, and then he just dies, like Shinjiro. But again, Shinjiro technically gets more flack for this than Akechi, which is just something that I personally just don't understand these exceptions. Another interesting example is actually from Final Fantasy VII Remake, Zack Fair. The fact that Zack Fair's death gets prevented, and he is around in another world timeline, whatever you want to call it, still going around and doing things. But I've seen people genuinely praise this because a character that they loved gets another chance to have an adventure and everything in life. But even though this should make Zack's death completely inconsequential, or it feels like a cheapened thing to pretty much just bring back an old character, but for Final Fantasy VII fans, what I've seen, they like it. They like this change. They like this addition to some Remake project, even though it feels like something that theoretically should be taking a giant dump towards everything else. But again, Final Fantasy franchise, you've had people been wanting to try and find ways to prevent people's characters' deaths in Final Fantasy VI. So I guess it kind of adds up there. But certain aspect, you think as a death, it just being null and void as of right now in the Remake project will kind of undermine events that happen, but for people, they welcome it, and I've seen some people say that you must hate Zack Fair if you want him to die. I love Zack Fair, but his death there meant a lot, so to just undo that doesn't sound like a good idea to me, but I'm not the one making a Remake project, so what do I know? It's just a topic that I thought about for a long time, like, what exactly defines a hard-hitting and well-done death in a JRPG for a playable character? Because like I said, you have characters that kind of get their deaths thrown to the side because, oh, freaking, they're just created to die, or oh, they get a replacement. But you have an example of characters who basically fit into that bill, but people love them and love those deaths and scenario, and love the impact the characters had. So it's just one of those topics, you know, like it's one of those ideas I just ponder about and go, huh, I'm not sure if it just doesn't hit me much, because in the characters that generally get praised, like Aerith and Akechi, like, well, I don't like Akechi, and I think Aerith is eh. So perhaps just because for me it doesn't really hit much, but I love Galuf, but I wouldn't want Galuf to suddenly be resurrected or anything. And many people, Galuf's death doesn't matter because, oh, Cross took his place. Lavitz's death doesn't matter because Albert takes his place, even though Albert plays differently. But for those people, that's generally what kind of all matters, is, does the character get replaced? Yes, then it's kind of inconsequential. Unless it's Aerith, unless it's Akechi. Then suddenly, those characters matter greatly, and people will spend time trying to figure out how to bring the character back, or will theorize the character never actually died. Like, this is just a whole entire topic of what really defines a good playable character death in an RPG. And I know in reality, there's no metric. It's gotta be changed from person to person. But it's just one of those things to ponder about, you know? Just one of those topics that kind of haunt me of, why does this get love, but this one doesn't? So just one of those things. Thank you for indulging me in a giant-ass ramble that pretty much just kept going in circles and not really anywhere. But hey, it's a fun topic to think about when it comes to playable character deaths in an RPG, especially in games, especially in series where you need your characters and everything for RPG. I mean, I've seen some look at the Fire Emblem series and say the fact that you get so many units is a bad thing because the games expect you to have units die.
Yes, she is. That fast.
But if those units don't die, then you're left in an awkward bit where you have so many units that you don't know what to do with and probably aren't going to use. And that's kind of an whole entire different kind of worm, especially in recent games where you can rewind time to prevent character deaths.
Intermingle with each other.
Dimitri, son, I don't know what you're doing.
No, Dimitri, don't!
What's he doing?
No!
Hey, it's okay. We got
We're gonna rewind.
Yeah.
I just.
Or how Fire Emblem, while certain characters retire because they're too important for the story mode, and therefore they can't have them leave the story mode, but they're not playable, or stuff like a coward move of permadeath, except not really because this person retired because they're eating for cutscenes. But that's a whole different kind of worms of one entire how Fire Emblem handles its character deaths, and how it can feel either pointless or the fact that they do so many units as a kind of a bad thing of too many characters. So that's pretty much my whole entire Ramanama, and not there because I'm going to Fire Emblem Unit Deaths, which is its own can of worms.